Before we move directly onto the Composer installation, I'd like to talk a little bit about the global namespace as far as it's used with the terminal while we're in Linux. Now, to do that, I'm going to show you a couple of things. We're going to look into the file manager here. That's that little picture of a file cabinet, and down here where it says computer, we're going to click on that. Now, we can look at a couple of things. Let's look in opt, for instance, and you can see that we've got Google going on here. This is the guest edition that we installed that earlier that allows us to have a full screen mode. And of course Google we just installed a little while ago. Now there are some other things as well that we want you to take a look at. More importantly, var and www and HTML. This is where all of our files and specifically our Symfony project will be held. If you've worked with XAMPP or WAMP before, it's synonymous with the htdocs folder. So that's where that resides. Now, the reason that I bring this up now is because there is a special one that I want you to look at, and that's called user bin. Now, what's going to end up pulling in here, these are actually going to be aliases to other programs. So all of these things with these little arrows in here actually point somewhere else. But because it's inside user and bin, no matter where I am in the terminal, in the file structure in the terminal, because it's in the global namespace and there's an alias put in here, I can call it from that place. If I did not have that alias put in here, in order to call the script, I would have to specifically type out the path to the file that I'm calling every single time. So if there's going to be things that you're going to be using a lot of, for instance, one of them that we are already using quite a bit is Google. So I'm going to go down and find that one. Google itself does not reside here because we showed you where it resides in the opt folder. But it is here somewhere. There's just a lot in here right now. Let's see, I should be coming soon. There we go. There's our alias. So we can type Google Chrome to get to the browser from anywhere, because on the installation of this program, we had something put here, an alias put here, so that we could do it. We need to do that ourselves for the next program we're going to install, which is Composer. So let's take a look at that. The first thing is I was able to look at the errors that we were having. I made a new discovery. I love learning new things, and I hope you get to learn it too. I'm going to go ahead and close this out so that you can see what I learned. And what we're going to do is we're going to open a terminal, and rather than just typing Google Chrome, if I know the address that I'm going to, I can type it here. And what I'm going to type is getcomposer.org. The full address is getcomposer.org. And now that will, well, it told me an invalid pattern, but I still got it. So this is what we're going to install. Now, if we click here on download, it tells you everything that we need to do, just in case you want to look at that. But I'm going to show you everything that is involved right here. So we're going to go back to our terminal with Alt-T, or I'm sorry, Alt-Tab. There we go. And it looks like, let's get out of here. Let's just open up a new one. Let's go ahead and close the terminal and Control-Alt-T. And we've got a new terminal. And we're going to say sudo curl. That was one of the extensions that we installed earlier. And we're going to say small s and large s. I'm going to, or should I say capital S? Going to extend that so you can see everything fully. And we're going to install from https://getcomposer.org/installer, and we're going to pipe this to PHP. So we're going to tell curl to, hey, go get this information and hand it off to PHP. So it's going to ask for the password. All settings are correct, and we have everything installed. Now, if I wanted to use Composer at this point, I would, before I could ever get to it, I would first have to type out the address or type out the location. But what I actually want to do, because I would have to do something like php composer.far and then run my command from there. But that's a whole lot of typing. I'd rather just type composer and then the command. So I'm going to move this to that bin to put it within global scope. And what we're going to do is we're going to say sudo move composer.far, and we're going to move it to user local bin, and we're going to create an alias called composer. And now I would be able to operate on Composer. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to install the Symfony installer. We're not installing Symfony, we're installing the Symfony installer. There is a difference. Every time that you want to start a new Symfony project, what you're going to do is you're going to run the installer so that it writes a good 70 to 80% of the code that you'll need for you. And then there's just so much that the installer does. It's not in the old days when you used to get a repository and load it up and make changes and all of that. A lot of this stuff is written for you along the way, depending on the things that you tell it to do, what libraries that you want it to use, what type of pages you're going to have, etc. Of course, which we'll show you as we move on. So we need to get the Symfony installer. So we're going to do this. We're going to do this as sudo or as root user. We're going to use curl again, dash capital L lowercase s uppercase s. Now we're going to put in the website. That's http://symfony.com/installer. And now we're going to actually go ahead and move that over to global scope already. So it's going to be user/local/bin/Symfony. Now we need to change some write permissions around, so we're going to do a chmod a+x/user/local/bin/Symfony. And that's pretty good. Now let's go ahead and install our first Symfony package. Now you'll notice that we're doing this without any editor yet. We'll get to that step later. But what we want to do is just show you the part about creating a package. So we're going to say sudo composer. That's the dependency manager that we downloaded and installed earlier. And we're doing this from the global scope. Remember that before, if you did not do that that global scope, instead you would have to write php composer.var and then the rest of the command. But from here on out, we're not going to show you that anymore. We're just going to say composer. And we're going to use that program to create project. And it's create dash project. And we're going to download this. It's going to be Symfony. You know, I think that's a capital S. There we go. And that's the vendor name, framework dash standard dash edition. Remember earlier I showed you where our things are as far as htdocs, or in this case it's var www.html. So we have to place the folder where it's going to reside. So we're going to say var /www/html, and we're going to give our project a name. And for now, I'm just going to call mine project. Now we have an optional argument here. We can put in the version number if we want, 2.7.0, which is the latest stable release as of this writing or this recording. But I'm just going to go ahead and leave it blank and let the chips fall where they may. I'm going to press enter, and it should start downloading this. Now this is going to take a couple of seconds, and it's going to ask you, or maybe a minute or two, depending on the size of the memory. But you can see that it's installing, and it's going to ask us some questions. Let's see. When it gets down here, it's installing everything. And in another video or two, we will have a look at what all of that means. So all of these are the modules that Symfony uses to make everything work. Now remember, this is the development machine, so I'm just going to kind of leave everything as it is. The database host is correct. We've got the port. We can just I'm going to change the name to the same thing that I named my project, which I'm going to have to scroll up to see what that was. That's going to be quite a ways up here. I've already forgotten. Oh, I just called it project. So we're going to call it project. And then user is root. We left all of that blank before. We don't need to worry about mail in this case. And I'm going to put in the name of a spouse. You know, of course, it should be something better than that, but we'll leave that to you. You can even leave it the way it is if you'd like to. So now we have everything installed. So let's take a look and see where it put everything. And I'm going to just kind of do a list of where I am now. And it tells me that the place where I am has desktop, documents, downloads, all of that kind of stuff. What I want to do is change directories and go to var. Alright, and if I do an ls there, that's a list, that's backups, cache, crashed, lib, all of that kind of stuff. And of course, the one we want is the very last one, which is www. So I'm going to change directories into that. And this, I'm going to, instead of going from absolute root, I'm going to go from where I am now, which would be there, www. And let's do a list, and there is HTML. So I'll do the same thing again, HTML, and there we go, project. Let's go ahead and take a look inside project and see what it has. So it downloaded all of these folders: app, bin, our composer files, licensing, the README files, the MD files, source, vendor, where there's just a whole bunch of modules that Symfony uses to make everything run, and web. So you see everything there. Of course, that will make more sense when we get it up in a text editor, Sublime, in the next video.